We are going to get started. Please, crowd, settle down. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. That is really loud to me. Welcome. Welcome to Campaign for Liberty. Happy Thanksgiving. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone else who's already celebrating somewhere else. So I'm Lowell Sheets. I just want to welcome you here to Campaign for Liberty for our November meeting. We're going to start the meeting with a word of prayer and then a pledge to the flag. So if you would rise with me as we pray. Dear Father, we thank you for your blessings, for your grace, for your mercy. We thank you for each other, for the camaraderie, for the blessing of just knowing each other and to find like-minded, liberty-minded, patriotic people. And we just pray that you would bless our country once again, help us to do our part and to expose what's happening, to fight what's happening, to stand up for what's right, for liberty, for the principles our country is founded upon. And we just thank you for your love for us and that you forgive us of our sins as we trust you as our Savior. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. How many people, is this your first Campaign for Liberty meeting? Okay. She almost went for it. Oh, good deal, good deal. You guys from Baltimore County?
Well, this is my first time here, and this was for Hartford.
Okay, gotcha. All right, very, very cool. But you guys know about Campaign for Liberty, yeah. I'll just tell you about our deal here. We love to patronize Jerry over there in the window. The Jerry in the window, the doggy in the window. Well, I know how much is that doggy. Never mind. Okay, you gotta be old. But he's got coffee, tea, soft drinks, some mixed drinks, beer and wine. So at any time that you'd like to go back there and take advantage of that, you are very, very welcome. For those of you who don't know, almost everybody here does, they could probably say this with me, but the Campaign for Liberty was founded actually by Ron Paul when he had abandoned his 2008 run for president. And I like what he says in the beginning of this remarks on the Constitution. This is just the constitutions that we have in the back there. The time has come to act. May future generations look back on our work and say that these were men and women who, in a moment of great crisis, stood up to the politicians, the opinion molders, and the establishment and saved their country. So he founded Campaign for Liberty on the principles of individual liberty, constitutional government, free markets, sound money, and a non-interventionist foreign policy. And we just believe in the Constitution. It's the founding document of our government. If we are faithful to it, many, many problems would be taken care of. As Thomas Jefferson said, sometimes it is said that man cannot be trusted with the government of himself. Can he then be trusted with the government of others? So that's why we have a republic. It's the rule of law. It's the law that basically says, not that it gives us our freedoms, it basically says we understand that these freedoms, these rights come from who?
God.
From God, right. They don't come from government, as opposed to what they're teaching today in Common Core. If you've seen the curriculum stuff on Facebook or whatever, that government gives you these rights and all that kind of stuff. It's just disgusting. It's just absolutely disgusting and wrong. So anyway, we're glad you're here at Campaign for Liberty tonight. We have two of my favorite speakers. I always say that, don't I? Actually, I have three of my favorite speakers. So we have three speakers, so I better be careful. The first speaker tonight is going to be talking about something coming up because it is the holidays. There is some special things happening, and Campaign for Liberty has their own special event for the holidays as well. And I'm going to bring up Vicki, if she can at this point, to talk about the upcoming party. And you will not want to miss it. I'm not going to give away anything that she's going to say, but just so you know, if you get excited about this, Eric's got his laptop, and you can sign up and get tickets while you're here tonight, which we encourage you to do. Vicki?
Okay. All right. Anybody here that was at our party last year? I know I was. And okay. And did you have a great time? Yeah. We had a great time. It was awesome. It's not Campaign for Liberty, but it's actually Maryland Liberty Action, which is an organization that we work a lot with. They are hosting the party and selling the tickets, but we're helping them with the food and everything. For this year, we're at a bigger, better venue, 900 Bowley's Quarters in Bowley's, right on Bowley's Quarters Road. It's called the Lighthouse Gardens, and I was just there last week to check out the venue again, count tables, things like that, and it was set up for a wedding, and it was fabulous. If you were there last year, you remember that we were a little cramped. We had to settle for a less than ideal venue kind of at the last minute, but this year we got started planning a little earlier, and it really is a nice venue. So, $30 gets you tenderloin sandwiches, shrimp, open bar with beer, wine, and our signature drink, the Libertini. It is delicious. Did you have Libertinis last year? Did you have a Libertini?
I don't think I did.
Did you have a Libertini, Dave?
I don't drink.
Well, I had a couple, and let me tell you, they were mighty tasty. Eric is going to be selling tickets. We can sell them online. The date is December 13th. It's from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. We have a guest speaker there, Dan Bongino. If you've never heard Mr. Bongino speak, he is dynamic, he is fantastic. You will hear things from him that you haven't heard elsewhere. I think the $30 is worth it just to hear Mr. Bongino. We'll all be there, you'll be with friends. Buy a ticket. Get together with some friends. Buy a table of 8. The tables will be set up for 8. So come with your spouse, your friend, your significant other, bring a couple neighbors, buy a ticket and come. I guarantee you will have an awesome, awesome time. So I want to see like lines stretching around the building in front of Santa Claus over here, because Santa Claus is the one that's going to be selling the tickets, okay? And hope to see you all there. I can guarantee you a good time. Any questions about the event? Come on, Mr. Bates, I know you like to party. You're going to come, right? All right, hope to see you there.
Thank you, Vicki.
You're welcome.
We have some exceptional speakers tonight, as I mentioned, and we're going to do, while Mr. Rothschild is setting up a little bit, we're going to just do a quick open mic. Is that all right, Dave? We'll get that done. And I know we've got one person that signed up for open mic, and their name is this gentleman. Okay, come on up. If you'll forgive us while we're doing a little stuff while you're
That's
open
fine.
micing.
Yeah, I'm Mark Baskerville. I'm with the steering committee with Baltimore County Campaign for Liberty. I just want to let you guys know that we're going to have a list building event coming up, not this weekend, but the following weekend at the Timonium Fairgrounds. It's going to be an auto show there, and we're hoping to get a lot of petition signatures against the vehicle mile travel tax. So if anybody's interested in volunteering, it'll just be all day Saturday and Sunday. You can just pick any shift that you're interested in. Just come talk to me when you get a chance, and if you're interested, and I can tell you more about it. So it should be a really good list building opportunity to help create some pressure against some delegates and senators who are most likely going to try to support this bill if it comes out of the State House this legislative season. So we really need to be ready to fight against that. So that's, again, it's the 6th and the 7th, Saturday and Sunday, Timonium Fairgrounds all day, free admission for any volunteers that want to go in and help us collect some petitions there. So thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.
Yep.
What a great idea. What a great idea. I was just going to have you guys, while we're finishing setting up, can you come up, Melissa, and just tell where you just came from? Uh-oh. Since it's open mic night. If you'll forgive us while we keep setting up.
My mother and my son and I traveled to Washington, D.C. today, and met some patriots that have been protesting in front of the White House since Thursday evening, since our president made the amnesty our law and allowed all of the illegal aliens to have I think it's an 18-month work visa that he's giving them. These are veterans that have come back after serving 2 and 3 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they can't get jobs. They're not getting their health care. One gentleman has been on a list for 7 months. And these are young guys that are just totally upset by this amnesty issue, that their life is already difficult enough, and this just magnifies it that much more. So they literally have bought their Marines, their backpack and their tents, and they are set up in the park across the street. They've been there 24/7, which means 6 days since Thursday they've been there. They've been eating MREs, and I took them, my mom and I made chili, homemade chili, and put it in the crock pot, and thank God I have a van that has a plug, and it stayed warm all the way down the road. We took a case of water, we took a bag of apples, they were so like appreciative. They were just like, they had tears on their eyes that, you know, we drove all the way down there and to take that to them. And I said, I feel like the least I can do, because you're standing out here and you're telling me you don't have a job after leaving the Marines, you don't have health care, you came here on your own dime and living in a tent, and it's cold and they're gonna call for snow. The least I can do is make something to bring down to you. I wish I could do more. And they've been, you know, putting some videos on Facebook and a couple different, like Twitter and Instagram and things like that, trying to get the word out. They have had some conservative bloggers and conservative papers that have actually called them and done like an over-the-phone interview. They had one person show up and actually do some video and you know, just to hear what they had to say. I haven't seen it on television, of course. They're encouraging more people to come out. Over the weekend, there were a lot more people there than during the week. We're going to go back down on Saturday, and a bunch of people that I know that I've gotten together are going to go down and just hang out with them and hopefully take some more food. So a gentleman came up in the park and just offered to pay for a hotel room so they could get a shower, because they've been there, like I said, 6 days and no shower. So I thought that was nice that someone paid for a hotel for a night that they can all go take turns and get showers. So I thought it was pretty interesting that someone, you know, is doing that. And the funny part, if you want to see the video, they have a megaphone. So at like 2 o'clock in the morning, they start yelling, Barack Hussein Obama, we the people are tired of you violating our constitutional God-given rights. I mean, it's very loud. So if you want to see the video, I've got it. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And the stuff that they say, that they're not derogatory. They don't use no bad language. It's all factual stuff from the Constitution and things that have been done to violate our rights. So that's all they do.
Either pictures of the video to share on Facebook so we can share with our friends.
Absolutely. The 2 gentlemen that are leading the group, Manny Vega and Blaine Cooper. And like I said, if you want to see any of the video, or if you want me to send it, if you have an account, I'll send it to you so that you can see it. It's really good. And they stand out there and sing God Bless America and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and just all very patriotic things. And
Cool.
trying to educate people that are coming up and down, that are visitors.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for feeding them.
Sure.
I don't know if you said that part. I was setting up stuff. Well, like I said, our speakers tonight actually are going to be talking about 2 very important things. One is an election recap. I don't know about you, but I woke up on Wednesday morning and didn't really know how to act. I mean, have you ever remember an election where most of the people that you wanted to win won? I didn't even know what that was like. I'm used to the first Wednesday of November being every 2 or 4 years being just the most depressing day of the year, basically. You've heard of Black Friday, I call it Black Wednesday. I mean, it's depressing. But this year was pretty amazing, and Dave Pridgeon's going to come in a little bit and give us a recap of how many really good things happened. And besides here locally, but it's just some good things happened in a lot of places. So we're happy about that. Our next speaker is truly a Maryland hero. Seriously. And I can't begin to go into all the things that he's done and all the things that he stands for, but he speaks the truth, and he speaks against powers that are pretty big. He is are you the president of the Carroll County Council, or?
I'm vice president for one more week anyway, until the rhinos take me out.
For one more week. This is his farewell tour.
I was reelected, but I'll lose my position as vice president.
Oh, okay.
The school teachers, the union members will take that position.
Gotcha. But he's been extremely effective in Carroll County in steering the leadership of the county, the council, and the attorney general, and the sheriff, and they've just done some amazing things. I'll let him tell you about that. But he's going to be talking to us tonight about a topic that I'm going to learn a lot about, coordination, and I'm just going to let him come up and do it to us. And his name is Richard Rothschild, and he's phenomenal, a Maryland hero.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here up in the northern hinterland. We fought the alligators in the swamps getting up here tonight, but we made it on time. So if you give us just a minute, I want to get this presentation up and running here. Give me just a second, if you'll bear with me. I'm not going to sing, or I'll drive you all out of the room. Okay, how are we doing here? It's asleep. All right, here it comes. And we'll talk to him for a minute before it's time. I think I left it open. Oh, wait. We all know how fast Windows is on the boot up, don't we? Well, while Kathy's waiting for that to boot up, I'll make a few comments. Again, it's a pleasure to be here at C4L. I thank you for all the work that you're doing across the state, emboldening conservatives because, or I should say constitutionalists, I have to watch my audience here. Because the left is disemboldening them. The left punishes Republicans that are trying to do the right thing, and organizations like Campaign for Liberty embolden them. And I've got an interesting situation in my own board because I'm the only remaining constitutional conservative. What's going on here? We're not. All right, give it a minute here. Let me shut it down and bring it back up. We'll get it up. That should be rebooting now. Just leave it alone. Don't press any buttons. So anyway, so I've got 4 very weak Republicans that I work with now, and it's interesting. They're going to take some aggressive action over the next week, and they're going to start undoing the things that my prior board of commissioners did over the last 4 years. But what is interesting about it is I don't think they understand how they got elected. And I think as soon as they start their agenda, they're going to get beat up pretty badly by the public. See, in most counties, and Carroll counties are different, you only have maybe 3,000, 4,000 people voting each district. The government labor unions dominated the primaries. So you won the primaries by a few hundred votes if you can get more labor union members out. So you figure in a primary with 4,000 people, if you get 2,100 votes, you're in, of which, half of them or more are unions. But once you get past the primary, you get into the general election. At that point, you win in my county if you have an R next to your name. You see what I'm saying? And what they don't realize is those R's, most of them are still thinking like us. Less government, constitutional rights, respecting the role of God in government, Second Amendment rights, restoring the proper role of God in prayer and government meetings. So they're going to start taking actions over the next few weeks. They're going to be very interesting. They're going to strip prayer out. Carroll County helped win the right to pray in government meetings. And of course, that shouldn't be a surprise. It's in Article 36 and 37 of the Maryland Constitution. No. You know what it is? I know what it is. Let's get this off. It's detecting this, and it's blocking out the screen probably. Try it again. If not, we have another computer. I don't know if we have the document though on the thumb drive. Shut it down and we'll bring it back up. So where were we? We disconnected the DB20 to DB13 because we think it's probably detecting that and blocking out the screen. Here it comes, here it comes.
Well, it did this 2 other times. Hold on just a second, don't go anywhere.
I want to see what that's.
Okay, you guys, go ahead and talk and we'll do.
No, it's coming up. Okay, it's coming up now. So anyway, where was I? What was I rambling about? So they're gonna disassemble prayer. They're going to disassemble our education choice program because they're listening to the noisy liberals in the media.
Okay, now it's going.
As soon as they do this, the other 90%, you don't have to do it. Wait till we're up.
I know what I'm doing.
Okay. As soon as they do this, the other 90% of Republicans that didn't speak in the primary are going to speak up, and I think that's going to blow up in their faces. So we'll see. Why does the state do this stuff to us? Why has it at least up until now? Maybe it'll change now. Why does the state do this to us?
We let them.
Thank you. Because we let them. I have a theory that across Maryland, Republicans have become experts at losing. I'm absolutely convinced that across Maryland, Republicans have actually confined themselves into such a small box that they're destined to lose in Annapolis. In fact, if you go to them and you say, we know how to win, they don't want to hear it. I'm the expert. I know we can't win. Stop telling me what we can do. We know we can't do this. It reminds me of the fable or the parable of the elephant. You ever hear that about the elephant in Africa is captured? Elephant's captured in Africa, and they herd it back to the village. They put a steel shackle around its leg, heavy chain, hook it up to a steel stake in the ground, and for the next 3 weeks the elephant struggles all day long trying to break away from that chain, but he can't, right? And then one day in the middle of the night, one of the natives who feels sympathetic disconnects the chain and hooks a very thin clothesline cord to the shackle, from the shackle of the elephant to the ground. Next morning the elephant wakes up, but by this time he's gotten so used to the idea that he can't break free that he doesn't even try. See where I'm going? He's given up when in fact he has the ability to break free. And one of the things that I've determined to do myself as an elected official, I went to my second term next week, is devise ways, guerrilla warfare, devise ways to defeat them outside of the legislature. When you're at number 3-1, you better figure out ways to defeat them outside the legislature. So while we're waiting for this to boot up, I'll share a few of those things. As you know, I crafted the state's first Second Amendment nullification resolution. It was actually passed first by Hartford and Cecil, but I actually wrote the first one. And what it did in Carroll County is it prohibited the use of Carroll County resources to enforce O'Malley's gun laws. When it came to the rain tax, I think I was the first, or one of the first officials in Maryland to say to Annapolis, no, we're not doing it. No. And I told my chief of staff to tell the MDE, the Maryland Department of Environment, that if they wanted to insist on enforcing against us, come on at it, because I'm going to drag them into hearings, and I'm going to prove the emperor has no clothing, that they have no science, no economics, no empirical data, that they have very weak legal basis constitutionally on things like the 14th due process clause, equal rights, that kind of thing under the law, and most importantly, the fact that the rain tax, if you think about this, you got to think about things to come up with ways to beat them. In America, you're innocent until what? But the rain tax, which is a fee based on the amount of rain that comes off your land, presumes you are what? Guilty until proven innocent, basically. There's no chance to prove yourself innocent. And my position was, you may not know this, but the rain tax was not a tax. What was it?
A fee.
A fee. And if it's a fee, it has to be tied to the amount of activity. Did anybody ever measure the amount of rain that's coming off of, Vicki, off your downspout?
We have rain barrels.
Well, don't let them catch you with them in Colorado. They'll send you to jail. See, in Colorado, you get locked up if you capture rain.
That's
And in
good.
Maryland, you get locked up if you don't capture rain. They see it depends whether you're east or west. I've come to that one conclusion, there's Democratic rain and Republican rain, that's all I can figure. Are we all, I think we're almost
Okay.
up.
Almost, as soon as it
We're
picks
almost
up
up. Okay. You just hit the source, just the source button's all we need. It'll do it. It'll search automatically with source. You press the source button. Okay. Search. And assuming we have a good cable, it will detect. Source found. Come on. Come on.
You'd think we hadn't done this before.
We've only done this 100 times. This is what I should have set up earlier. Screens F8. There we go. Duplicate.
What kind of cable do you need?
I've got a good cable. Let's see if this works. Here we go. We got it, I think. I think it's probably the cable, if anything, because there we go. There we go. We got it. All right.
No, duplicate or
Because I have a
extend?
15-foot
You got
HDMI cable.
So if it's on extend, you can have it. No, fine, duplicate if you want. I prefer extend. Yeah.
So anyway, we refused to implement the rain tax, and I said, the state wants to draw us, drag us into hearings, then go right ahead. We lose it again?
No, it's coming back.
If the state wants to drag us into hearings, then go ahead and I'll demonstrate that the MD has no science or anything else that's needed to justify this. And by the way, I have a few other arguments for property owners that already had developed their site plans and done stormwater management. Doesn't this amount to double jeopardy? I just paid $100,000 to put in a stormwater management plan. Now you're gonna start taxing me again after I complied. I had 28 arguments on why the fee was inappropriate. 28 arguments that I would use. I actually wrote a declaration of grievances and went through 28 things that we would do to stop this if the state tried to enforce against us. So there are ways that we can stop. You just gotta get clever. Okay, we're up and running? Now, your job is to yell if I start to trip myself, okay? And before I start, Vicki, what time do I have to be done by?
I gave you 45 minutes and a 15 Q&A. You'll be good, we'll be okay.
Okay, all right. So the trick here is to figure out ways to fight. You know, you ever see the movie, remember the Star Trek movie with the Borg? They could shoot them 3 times with their phasers and they would adapt. Their shields would adapt and they couldn't kill them anymore. That's the kind of thing we have to do here in Maryland, is we got to figure out ways to adapt so we can still stop them. And one of the most important tools that I brought to the Rural Coalition of Counties 2 years ago was something called coordination. Let's go ahead and start going through this. Disclaimer, I'm not an expert on this. I've never been through a complete process, but I will take credit for being a pioneer and pushing it through. Because the first time I brought it to the Rural Coalition of Counties, they looked at me like I was crazy. Well, it's impossible. There can't be a way to beat them, because somebody else would have thought of it already. See the thought process? Next slide.
Oh,
Well,
you know what,
that
this
should
is the
be there.
wrong.
Well, that's all right. They like it. You gotta remember. But we are at a critical crossroads, you know, and the question here we have to deal with in our country is individual liberties, our inalienable rights of life, liberty, or property. But of course, the Agenda 21 vision of environment, economy, social equity, now they've added a 4th E to this, and that's education.
I think I might be in the wrong, am I in the wrong one?
Are we in the wrong slide? Oh, you're in the wrong presentation. Here, let's switch. That's all right. They start the same, so we haven't lost anything. That's the Virginia Tea Party. Let's open this up. Navanda, we made a special one just for this here. And this would be, actually, no, probably recent places. C4L. Coordination update. There we go. It starts the same. All right. Put it back into presentation. All right. All right. Next slide. Some of you have seen this slide before, but it's one of my favorite slides because it helps explain what many of these people are what I would call 21st century Bolsheviks that do this stuff to us. And I'm going to read that for those of you that can't see. It's a quote from C.S. Lewis. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny exercised for the good of its victim may be the most oppressive. It may be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. Doesn't that make us sound like some of these sanctimonious regulators that think they know what's best for us?
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. So why coordination? We'll define it in a minute. Because the biggest lie we hear in government, that every elected official is hearing, from the county council to the county commissioner to the state, is we have to do it. The EPA says we have to do it. Are the EPA's powers unlimited? No, they're not. But they act like they are. They act like they are. But you see, it's not true. Because for every yin there is a yang, and there's a whole body of legislation at the federal level which says, hey, by the way, EPA, you got a lot of power, and you can enforce under the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. You can do all these nasty things to our citizens, like try to tax air or tax rain. But by the way, we want to make sure there's some balance of power. So Congress created another set of laws, and the 600-pound gorilla is something called the National Environmental Policy Act. And what it says, simply stated, is if a local official thinks that your regulations are going to be harmful to their government, you can say, time out, you can't administer this here. You have to coordinate with us. This is going to be harmful. We don't want to soak up pollution with an eyedropper when we have a way of pumping it out by the thousands of gallons with a pump. I like to use a term, am I getting ahead of the slide, legal inversion? Okay, I'll wait. Oh, here we go. So I call this a guerrilla tool, and what we're really doing is use the different set of federal laws against the federal government. One set says go and regulate, but the other one says caution flag, you can't regulate if it's going to be harmful. And I refer to this process as what I call legal inversion. See, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, holding them accountable to their own laws. They ignore the laws that are designed to slow them down, and they use the laws that enable them to go full speed ahead. You see what I'm saying? Okay, next slide. So let's look at some samples of federal laws. Don't be intimidated by all this. You can look this stuff up, and we can send you a copy of the presentation. Federal Unfunded Mandates Reform Act. Federal Unfunded Mandates Reform Act. It ends the imposition of federal mandates on local governments when there's inadequate federal funding. So if I pass a law for a jurisdiction, if I pass a regulation by the EPA which is going to affect a town with a population under 50,000, if it's going to have the effect of decimating their economy, and I don't provide the funds to implement it, they have a right to say, wait a minute, no, you're violating the Federal Unfunded Mandates Reform Act. And don't be intimidated. This doesn't take teams of lawyers and millions of dollars to do this. Is that Barack Obama? Guess you need to stop. And what the mandates say is that they can't administer the regulations in such a way that they displace other essential state and local government priorities. What are other essential state and local priorities? Schools, trash collection, public works, roads. Okay. Oh, that's supposed to dance a jig or something. Okay. All right. Next slide, Kathleen. Another federal law that protects us, a very important one. These are very simple to understand, so don't be intimidated by them. The Federal Data Quality Act. It holds government accountable to ensure the validity of data and the mandates based on the data. Simply stated, the Federal Data Quality Act says the following. If you're going to use regulation, data at the federal level, it's got to be verifiable, it's got to be transparent, there's got to be a means to correct it, because the data you use has to be real. Well, I can tell you right now, in Maryland, none of the data used by the Maryland Department of the Environment would pass the Data Quality Act. Now, I'm going to interject a comment right now. It's actually a premature punchline, but here's the thing, and I'll show you more of these laws in a minute. These laws, like the Federal Data Quality Act and the Federal Unfunded Mandates Reform Act, they will not enforce themselves. Just like the Constitution won't enforce itself, right? Who's authorized to demand that the federal government abide by these laws? All of us. The people in the local government that represent you. And if your officials aren't brave enough to invoke it, it just sits there. It's nothing more than words on paper that are being ignored. So you have to demand that your local officials stand up and demand to be protected under the federal laws like this that are designed to protect them. I told several people at the MD, I said, I know your data's garbage. I know your models came from Florida. I know you never recalculated the data to represent, converted the Florida soil samples to Maryland soil samples. I know you have no empirical data. You don't have anything that'll fit. In fact, you won't even tell us how your models are produced or how the coefficients and variables within your models are calculated. Nothing that you're doing as a basis for regulating us will pass the Federal Data Quality Act. Therefore, it's garbage. Right? Next slide. There's also federal precedent that protects us. I'm sure most of you are aware of the suit between the Virginia Department of Transportation versus the EPA, Judge I.M. O'Grady. He said that stormwater runoff is not a pollutant under the Clean Water Act. Why didn't somebody in Maryland sue the MDE? There's already a precedent. Let me read it again. Stormwater runoff is not a pollutant under the Clean Water Act. Well, what the heck did the rain tax do? It treated stormwater runoff as a pollutant. They're just ignoring these laws. And local officials that don't have the conviction to stand up and demand that their rights be respected will continue to be trampled if they don't demand these laws and these judicial precedents be respected. And Judge I.M. O'Grady went on to say, therefore, the EPA may not regulate stormwater as a pollutant, nor may stormwater be regulated as a surrogate for sediment because the court determined it is not within the ambit of EPA's total maximum daily load authority. Who knows what TMDL is?
Total maximum daily.
Total maximum daily load, that's correct, Vicki. And all that means is that's just a fancy bureaucratic word for the amount of pollutants that go into the bay.
Particular pollutants.
Particular pollutants that go into the bay. They didn't want to say pollutants, so they used TMDLs. So just substitute the word pollutants anytime you see that word. So here it is. We already won this. This battle's already been fought and won in Virginia. Nobody in Maryland did anything. In fact, when I try to take legal action, I get attacked by Democrats and Republicans. Commissioner Rothschild's wasting money. I've been attacked at least a dozen times in the paper for spending legal money on legal fees. Here's what they never tell you in the paper, though. We had $1 million total over 4 years, $250,000 a year for legal fees. We spent 18% of it over 4 years. $180,000 out of $1 million. And of the $180,000 we spent, one small portion of that was used to battle our way out of an incinerator contract the prior board had got into, and we saved $2 million. So I told people that the $180,000 that I encouraged that we spend on legal fees was the best return on investment we've ever gotten in the county because we saved $2 million. Yet they're still attacking me over it. And Republicans are attacking me over it because they're aided and abetted by a corrupt liberal media. I say I saved $2 million. They say, no, you wasted $180,000. I say I underspent the budget by 83%, 82%. They say, no, you're wasting money on frivolous level lawsuits instead of focusing your job of paving the way, the roads, and funding the schools. They have an answer for everything. Next slide. This is the granddaddy of all federal laws that are designed to protect us, the National Environmental Policy Act. It ensures environmental regulations do not injure the human environment. Time out. Do not injure the human environment. For the last 50 years of your lives, what did you think the human environment meant? The air and water. Is that what it means under federal regulations? No, sir. Because it turns out that the human environment under the National Environmental Policy Act includes both the natural and the built environment. The lives we build for ourselves, which includes historic, the cultural, economic, social, health, with a direct, indirect, or cumulative. In other words, if these regulations injure your business, if it injures your ability to fund your roads, your schools, if it affects the heritage or culture of Harford County, it qualifies for protection under the National Environmental Policy Act. Does that make sense? How many officials, if there is 100,000 officials in America today running around saying the EPA says we have to do this, how many officials know that we're entitled to protection under this out of 100,000?
One.
How many?
One.
One? It's probably more than that, but it probably,
I think most
Now we have
don't.
two.
Now we have two.
Good. All right.
Oh, who's our county? Okay.
All right. Oh, good.
Thanks for being here. Probably no more than 1%. And one of the observations I want to make about being elected for office, this is the only job in the world where you get to apply for it with no qualifications, no training, no demonstrated track record of being able to manage a budget, no need to understand how to read a balance sheet or an income statement. And when you get elected, you get to take an oath to a document that you've never read. And we wonder why our country's screwed up. I got a Tea Party guy in Carroll County named George Otto. He says they don't know what they're even taking an oath to, so the minute they take their oath of office, they're committing perjury. Next slide. So the bottom line is Maryland and the EPA are violating their own regulations. I just gave example 3 or 4 sets of regulations that they're violating. They cannot force you to do things in Hartford County that are going to damage your human environment. What does that include besides the air and the water?
Businesses? Business?
Businesses,
Culture?
culture, heritage.
Economy?
Next slide. So what are we actually doing about it? Coordination is a legal term. And it doesn't mean consulting. It doesn't mean a traveling infomercial. It doesn't mean that you sit in a room while some goofball from the MDE tells you how it's going to be, and then you capitulate. That's not coordination. And the courts have determined that coordination means coming together as equals. As equals, for purposes of devising a solution which is acceptable to all parties. And here's the best part about it, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't happen in a courtroom. Guess where it happens? Hartford County's county office building. You call them down. You call up the EPA and say, gentlemen, I'm a Hartford County councilman, come on down, just like The Price is Right. And then you get to run the meeting and ask them all kinds of questions that they never had to ask because the media was never intellectually sophisticated enough or honest enough to ask them the real questions. What does it cost per pound to take out a pound of nitrogen using stormwater retrofits rather than putting new oyster beds in? What does it cost per pound? How much water pollution actually comes off of John Doe's property sitting on an acre of land in the middle of whatever? They don't have the answers to these things. They have computer models, which of course have been biased to represent what they want them to do. So we get a chance to say, this is your plan, and this is our plan. We think your plan is stupid because it's going to cost us $4,000 to take out 1 pound of nitrogen, but with our plan, we can take out a pound of nitrogen for $40 for 1/100th the cost, and we get to slug it out. Does that make sense? Everybody following me so far?
Yeah.
Next slide. And this is the definition. Requires federal agencies to come to the table with county and municipal governments on an equal footing. This is the key word. They are not the 1,000-pound gorilla room. It's an equal footing to ensure that their regulations don't damage the environment, the economy, the culture, the heritage of Hartford County. Are you with me? Next slide. So what can you do? Well, we can invoke coordination because the environmental mandates they're forcing us are harming the human environment, are violating federal laws designed to protect us, and are inconsistent with local government plans. My plan says if I build a house on 3 acres of land, there's no runoff leaving anyway. Your plan says build 10 townhouses on a half an acre, where everything is asphalt, everything runs off. You see what I'm getting at? Even their own models are poorly constructed. Next slide. Another component of this, when you get into coordination, is disrupting them with your own plans. This is some language that I've tried to put into the Carroll County master plan. I'm struggling to get it in, but we still have a shot at it. And what it says is, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, the presumptive position of the Board of Commissioners is that your use of your property is not harming the environment. In other words, you are innocent until proven guilty. Planning and Zoning Commission hates this. In fact, one of the Planning and Zoning Commissioners named Richard Soyson said that he wants this out. And I said, why? He says, because I want it out. I said, give me some examples about why you don't like the property rights language I put. He says, I'm not going to be challenged by you. I said, just give me a couple of examples. This was just last week. 5 times I asked him, and finally he gave his true, he divulged his true colors. He said, because there's too much property rights stuff in this letter. This is what we're dealing with. The burden shall be on the state using actual local data to prove an impairment and a nexus to the alleged impairment actually exists. Why didn't somebody write this into a master plan 10 years ago? Why not? Because we like them. We don't try to fight them. You see what I'm saying? We're the elephant that's got the chain off, we got the rope, we can break free now, but we don't want to do it because I actually believe the Republicans are afraid of success now. Although hopefully this win 2 weeks ago will help us. Next slide. Okay, we already talked about this. Next slide. So I'm going to show you what it looks like now. I've explained to you in a classroom sense how it works. You get a general sense for it. It's a legal inversion. We use a different set of laws to defend ourselves because they're not allowed to administer regulations in a way that harms us. You get it? What does it look like? It's still rather obtuse. I'm going to give you actual excerpts. I'm working with Kent, Dorchester, and Caroline counties. And the following slides are excerpts from the actual coordination documents that they filed about a month and a half ago with federal agencies. Now, this was in an image format, so it's going to be a little hard to read, so I'm going to read them for you so that you don't have to have an eye test, because I know there's a lot of people here that are over 29 years of age, except you, and you. Okay. All right. This is the letter that went out of the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. Who knows what the Clean Chesapeake Coalition is? Clean Chesapeake Coalition is not a radical environmental group like the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. It is a group of about 10 counties that got together. I'm one of them. And so this has got to stop. This has got to stop. We have got to figure out cost-effective ways to solve these problems. This idea, if I had to describe the MDE strategy to pollution control, here's how, this would be the most accurate description. Everything, everywhere, at any price. That's not a strategy to succeed, that's a strategy for failure. And we said we've got to put a cost-benefit analysis in and figure out ways to do this cost-effectively. So this went to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Chesapeake Bay Field Office, NOAA, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. It's addressed to the senior officials in these things. And it talks about how these agencies have become involved in an oyster restoration program in Chesapeake Bay that affects all of us. The reason it affects all of us is because the oysters are what to the bay? Bingo, say it louder. It's the filter, the natural filter. If we could get a few million more oysters in the bay, we wouldn't have any pollution problem at all. The oysters basically eat pollution, and the oysters are dying off. Okay? Next slide. Now, you're going to love some of this language. This is about a 20-page document. I just took 4 or 5 excerpts to give you a feel for how the document sounds and feels. With respect to the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, your failure, this is our letter to the state, your failure to coordinate violates the Maryland Environmental Policy Act. Recognize that? That's just like the NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act. The Maryland Environmental Policy Act requires state agencies such as the Department of Natural Resources to assure that planning and decision-making involving environmental effects are undertaken with the fullest practical provision of timely public information and understanding and in coordination, remember that's a legal term, in coordination with public and private organizations and individuals with jurisdiction by law, well that would be a county commissioner, special expertise or recognized interests. So here it is. We said you failed to coordinate. The Maryland Environmental Policy Act says you have to coordinate with us and you didn't. That's what we said. Okay, get ready to cheer. The language gets better. Next slide. The harm being done by your failure to coordinate and by your program not being influenced by our local policies consists of heavy adverse impact on multiple Maryland local governments. So we intend to invite Clean Chesapeake Coalition member counties to join with us for a multi-county meeting. For your convenience, we will issue the invitation so you can engage in coordination with multiple counties at the same time. We're basically saying, we're Bob Barker. Come on down. Are you with me? Okay. Amen. Okay. Next slide. And it goes on, your personnel are familiar with the legal protections provided to us under the National Environmental Policy Act to local governments and our citizens. Repeatedly, federal agencies have been required to conform to them by the courts of virtually every jurisdiction, but you ignored them when you initiated your current environmental programs.
Wow.
You like that?
Yeah.
You ignored them when you initiated them. You ignored the law. We're going to hold you accountable to the other body of law. One set says you can come after us with your regulation. The other one says, no, you can't if you're going to hurt my economy, my culture, my heritage. Well, you ignored them, and we don't like it. Next slide. You're going to love this one. It'll make you feel good. I get chills up my spine on this one. What we expect of your agency, of your federal agency, is simple. We expect you to follow the letter of the law just as you would demand of our citizens. Oh, isn't that a remarkable idea? Yes. We expect them to follow the letter of the law just as you would demand of citizens. We expect you to coordinate your program with us as you should have done from its inception during the environmental assessment analysis. Had you coordinated with us, you would have been aware that your program is inconsistent with and in conflict with the specific policies of our county. Had you coordinated, you could have complied with the President's Executive Order 13508 that directs you to coordinate with local governments. Don't you love it? Next slide. So what was the response from the government, from big government, federal and state government? What was the response? Well, it's the same response you always get when you tell them that they can't do what they're doing. What do they always say? They say, we're above the law. That's what they say, don't they? Nobody can stop us. We're the EPA. Well, they said they don't have to do it. Blah, blah, blah. We've already done it because we've held meetings around the state. Was holding a meeting where they sit up at the podium like I'm sitting up here talking down to you. I'm not talking down to you, but talking at you. Does that qualify as coordination? No. If they call you up and say, what do you want, and consult with you, is that coordination? No. No. Coordination is like, gentlemen, what you do with your wife when you want to go to see the NASCAR races and she wants to go to the theater. You coordinate.
You go to the theater.
Right.
There you go. She'll be good at it.
And my response to the EPA said, you go to hell, They argue that their actions were insufficient to trigger the protections under the National Environmental Policy Act. By the way, this letter just came back 3 weeks ago from them.
It was all in the same letter?
On the same letter, yeah. It was a 2-page letter, I just got the highlights. And they said, by the way, we're working on an environmental assessment anyway. So the bottom line is they said, pound sand.
That's your words.
Yeah, right.
That's my word. But that's what they said. They said, pound sand. We don't have to do this. And that's what they always said. In fact, that's what they always say before they start losing in the process. Next slide. So our analysis. Here's our analysis of where we are 3 weeks after receiving their letter. The responding federal and state agencies claim that they do not have to meet and coordinate, and that they have fulfilled their obligations. Well, we knew what was going to happen because we've got good lawyers, and they said that's no surprise. The unexpected surprise is that they provided a letter explaining the basis for their determination, which makes some omissions that should be advantageous as we move forward. Like they're supposed to have an environmental assessment in advance. They said they're working on one.
They called it, yeah.
See where we're going? Next slide. They admit they are engaged in federally funded oyster restoration that requires a federal permit. Well, by definition, if it's federally funded program that requires a federal permit, those admissions serve as the basis for triggering the coordination process. We call that an admission against interest. See, they're stepping in it big time. They didn't realize it. We're getting this letter back. We're going, yes, it's good. NOAA then backtracks and states that it is relying on unidentified assessments, thereby admitting that there has been no environmental assessment of specific restoration efforts in the Maryland Bay, no environmental impact statement. Environmental assessment is just a study. You say this is what things are, and this is the effect it's going to have, but you can't promulgate regulations if you don't have an assessment to prove the effect. Is there any assessment done showing what effect the rain tanks will have in a particular section of Hartford County? No, they don't have it. Just computer models extracted from Florida. Next slide. So what? So they've, actually back up one slide, Ken. Okay, so this is the response. Next slide. Okay, so what? Well, we believe we can force them to participate in the coordination process. Now, the next question is, well, suppose they refuse. They will literally tell you, pound sand, we're not going to participate. Well, good. Good. We go into court, and we ask a very simple question. We say, Judge, under the following laws, you just saw all those laws, they have to coordinate. They've refused to do it. So we want an injunction against their rights to enforce against us. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. The only decision for the court has to make is there such a thing as coordination? Well, that's been proven over and over again in federal courts. And the next question that they have to prove is did they coordinate? If they can't prove they coordinated with us, and they try to argue that they're traveling infomercials where they stand up with a constitutes coordination, they lose. So we'll ask for an injunction. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Next slide. So what does a win look like? Let's assume we continue to play this process out. I don't know what the results will be. We could lose. I don't think so, but we could. Well, here's some possible solutions that would come out of a win. What would it look like? Well, one, We could force them to change their regulations because the ones they're doing are destructive to us. We could obtain permission to use less expensive means to reduce the pollution load, the TMDLs. We could force them to recalibrate their TMDL load models downward. If they recalibrate the pollution load downward, then we have less we have to take out. That could save a county tens of millions of dollars. Because their models are not we argue, we don't like your models. You say it's 50 million pounds a year. We say it's 10 million. Maybe we negotiate it up with 20 million, but that could cut our costs. Could save tens of millions of dollars. You see what I'm saying? If they coordinate with us. We could force them to remove the regulations altogether. There have been some cases where after they're charged with the need to coordinate, they decide they don't want to subject themselves to that. See, federal bureaucrats don't like being treated as equals. They want to be treated as if they're gods. Would have to be dragged into a room like this and be questioned by a nasty local commissioner like me. They don't like that. It's embarrassing, especially since in many cases they don't really have the science to back it up. So guess what they do? They don't show up at all. They just stop enforcement activities at that point. They just leave you alone. It's not worth it. If I go down to Kent County or Caroline County or Carroll County and risk being embarrassed, let's just leave them alone. It's not worth it. Forget the rain tax. Forget it. It's not worth fighting over. Crazy guy Rothschild will drive us crazy. I'll embarrass us. Or our coordinating bodies are exempted from existing regulations. They just exempt us. Okay, well, we're going to exempt you. We agree that Carroll County's too far away. We're going to exempt you from the rain tax. Whatever. Everyone that stands on the now. A lot of people are sitting on the sidelines now. I'm happy that David Craig finally joined the Clean Chesapeake Coalition, or was it the Clean Chesapeake Coalition about 3 months ago. A month, probably 3 months too late to win the election. But he finally joined. He's a good man. He finally joined. But a lot of counties are still standing on the sideline. There's 10 of us. There's another 13 counties that haven't joined. But if you stand on the sideline, you're stuck. Because if we win any of these coordination suits, it's going to save every county millions of dollars. Those that don't coordinate, you don't get to reap the benefits. If you don't play, you don't win.
But only 4 counties are coordinating so far.
Only 4 counties are coordinating so far. That was Caroline, Kent,
Dorchester and Carroll.
Dorchester, and Carroll. Okay, next one. That's my presentation, short and to the point. Do you understand coordination? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Do you want to tell them that the state does it all the time with the federal government?
Well, they
State does it all the time.
The federal government gets together with the state all the time. They do coordination as a matter of fact. Everything that the federal government wants to do, most of it doesn't have the authority to make the state do it. So they come to the state and they say, work with us. Let's sit down, let's form this coalition. That's what the Chesapeake Bay,
There's a whole group of Chesapeake Bay states that have just gotten together and they made this agreement that they're going to do this.
The only problem is, and I'm being a little bit facetious here, is when the EPA says we want you to do this, the Maryland agencies say to the EPA, well, we'll see you and raise you one.
Yeah, to the counties.
I have a question. You said that when the EPA responded to you, or maybe it was MDE, they said that the actions were insufficient to trigger NEPA. So, I mean, is that true? I mean, are there certain actions that fall below the threshold, or does anything that affects your food and environment trigger NEPA?
I don't know what all the triggers are, but I know this, according to our lawyers, if it's funded with federal dollars and requires a federal permit, then it's subject to NEPA.
and there's certain, there's one federal law that specifically impacts communities of 50,000 or more. So if you are, actually, they can't do things that impact communities of 50,000 or less. So if you, some of the federal permits apply to communities of 50,000 or more because that's who they can impact. They can't impact the smaller communities, and so they don't.
Define a community.
Community?
Well,
Well, I mean, Bel Air is a city. Is Bel Air a community?
Well, I think sometimes it's county, it
Well-
depends on what it is that they're.
Well, I think it's like the old question, I don't always, but I know when I see it, you know, but the federal unfunded mandates, I believe, is 50,000 less, but NEPA has no limit on the size. Entire state could invoke coordination under NEPA. Next question. We got free Hershey bars for anybody to ask questions. Yes.
How do we get, who do we pressure in Harford County for doing it? How do we,
Your council.
our county executive?
Yeah. Okay.
Barry Glassman said that, I went to his fundraiser back in the spring, he said that his goal was to get rid of that rain tax. So, I mean, wouldn't he need to join?
Well, he could. I mean, I believe that they've joined
I
the
think
Clean
they-
Chesapeake Coalition recently.
You said David Craig, but would that also, that would apply to the county executive?
I would think so. I think, well, you'd have to get your county executive to go along with it, but, you know, it's a process of education.
Have you talked to Barry Glassman?
No, I haven't, but I want to go back to your question. You said, how do you do it? Every resistance movement starts with one word.
Very good.
Say it.
No.
No! Not doing it. So I said, no, I'm not doing it. This is stupid. I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. I'm not doing it. So the first thing is, your officials, your county executive, and your council have to say no. And then whether or not they come after you will be a function of how seriously they take your threats. You know?
And you have to have a strategy. So, you know.
Does that answer your question?
Carroll County did not implement the rain tax in the way that the state had intended. Carroll County didn't tax extra. We just convinced the state that we were doing what we were supposed to be doing, what they wanted us to be doing. And, I mean, that should be the whole idea, right? Not to create a new tax. So we said, well, we put aside so much money already in a fund in order to do it. We're doing what you asked us to do. We don't need another tax. And basically, they let us go with that. They threatened us a lot, but we're doing what we were doing, so.
But initially, they didn't want to go along with that.
Right.
And the fact that you said no, that you wouldn't let them, that you stood up to them. And I think that, you know, what's going on in Carroll County is a great example of patriots standing up to an overly oppressive government, whether it's Democrat, Republican, or somewhere else.
Right. And the key was, we're doing what they wanted, what they say they want us to do. They say they want us to provide stormwater management. Well, to have a county that operates well, that isn't flooding all the time, you want to have stormwater management. How expensive that stormwater management is the question. How impacting it is on your rights and your property is the question. So one of the great things about coordination is when they actually come to the table to work with you, they have a goal. You gotta, figure out what that goal is. Can we agree on the goal? Okay, now let's work towards that goal in a way that doesn't break the county. And that's, I think you guys probably in Harford County are saying, this is not what we're coordinating on, but we said we are okay with your goal, we're just not okay with the process by which you make us reach that goal.
The interesting thing is that you were getting the job done, you were achieving the goal that they said they wanted you to achieve, but you weren't doing it by levying an additional tax that goes into some unspecified fund that can then
and then you have to wonder, what's the real goal?
They want to do with whatever they want, and
So
you
if-
have to say is
Well,
really raising another
Right,
tax or
so what's the goal?
Let me make something clear to you. You hit it, Vicki. There's actually two components to stopping this. You see, one was to stop the tax. But if you stop the tax and don't stop the spending, you still got a problem. You see what I'm saying? So we also had to stop the spending. So I started producing statistical studies showing that if Carroll County spent $30 million over 5 years, it would have an impact of like 1/14,000th of 1% on bay water pollution. In other words, zero. If you're going to say no, you better have some ammunition to back it up. I'm going to show you what I read into the public record the day we said no. This is something Kathy and I wrote with help from Commissioner Frazier. I'm going to read this. There's 28 reasons. I'm going to go through a couple of them to see so that they knew that we were serious and we thought we had grounds to fight if we had to. This was a statement of our concerns with the rain tax. Okay? Whereas the state of Maryland receives funding from the federal government and is bound by clean air, clean water.
I'm just making it bigger so I can
that's
see it.
good. You're going the wrong way. Go down. Go down.
To be able to see it.
Go down.
This is-
Go down. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. A little higher. Okay. Whereas the MDE policies do not comply with standards required for the Federal Data Quality Act. You recognize that?
Mm-hmm.
See where I'm going? This is the things, this is saber rattling. The next one, whereas policies of the MDE do not comply with the National Environmental Policy Act that states that they should use every practical means consistent with other essential considerations of national policy to avoid environmental degradation, but preserve the historic, cultural, natural resources. Preserve historic, cultural. If my farmers are going out of business, my culture and heritage are disappearing. Keep going up. Whereas the MDE have relied on computer models that lack transparency. See where I'm going? Keep going. Got 20. Let's go through some of these. Show you how many arguments you can put together. Number 6, whereas the state has not proven a connection between Carroll County runoff versus the bay water quality. Right? Show me the data. Whereas applying a new runoff fee for stormwater would amount to double jeopardy. Whereas when they develop their fees and their policies, they fail to recognize that applying fees based on square footage of impervious surface is not a scientifically valid way to do it. What really affects the amount of runoff is not the total square foot of the impervious surface, it's the percentage of impervious surface relative to the land mass around it. Right?
Yeah, okay.
If I got 1,000 square feet of parking lot surrounded by 100,000 square feet of land, of grass, it's probably not leaving the property anyway.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
See where I'm going? Next slide. I'm going to keep going down. Whereas the MDE continues to assert they're operating under mandate of the MDE asserts they're operating under the mandate of the EPA, yet the Virginia court case said stormwater is not a pollutant. I'm throwing everything I've got out. The next one. Whereas less than 4% of all land in Carroll County can be characterized as an impervious or paved surface. That's right, 4%. Studies show that when your impervious surface is less than 10%, it has an insignificant effect on the water quality of surrounding bodies. Whereas Carroll County has been responsible in reducing runoff by employing development templates with high percentages of non-paved surfaces. See where I'm going? Whereas rainwater and stormwater have a beneficial effect to mankind and wildlife by recharging our wells and our streams. It's not all evil. You know, rain is not evil. Ask the people out in Colorado, they'll tell you. Whereas Carroll County farmers are already employing best management practices, and we've preserved more than 65,000 acres of farms. Whereas the MDE have not successfully addressed the most likely source of bay water quality remediation, i.e. the Conowingo Dam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Keep going.
that's right.
Whereas the MDE have used flawed and misleading computer models when comparing nitrate loads and other pollution from septic systems by failing to include leakage of underground sewage lines, by failing to properly account for millions of gallons of raw sewage that overflows. Do you know how many gallons of sewage, just stormwater overflows alone, raw sewage overflows alone there were in Maryland from 2006 to present? 8.3 billion with a big.
And those are the ones that are accounted for. Baltimore City stopped counting for theirs.
Whereas the MDE's approach to bay cleanup of everything, everywhere, at any price has proven to be a failed strategy, as evidenced by the fact that the oyster harvest north of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge has fallen to zero over the last 30 years. Whereas Article 43 of the Maryland Constitution requires diffusion of knowledge and virtue, and Article 6 requires that all persons invested with the legislative or executive powers of government are the trustees of the public and as such accountable for their conduct. It is imperative that officials make decisions based on valid science and economics. Keep going. Whereas the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution states that no state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction equal protection. Yet the rain tax targets 9 of 23 counties, while failing to apply to many counties are actually abutting the Chesapeake Bay that ostensibly have a greater impact on water quality.
Because
You like this?
it's only
There you
10
go.
counties in the
Now
state.
imagine you're official with MDE and you're getting this. Would you be happy? Let's keep going. Whereas the failure of the MDE to apply verifiable science and sound economics has created a regulatory environment for Carroll that must be characterized as arbitrary and capricious. You ain't got the science. Whereas the state inappropriately removed money from the Bay Restoration Fund to balance the general fund and then used inaccurate modeling as a basis to promulgate the flush tax, the stormwater fee, and now has pending plans in the 2012 MDOT transportation plan to require GPS tracking of vehicle mileage. VMT. Let me talk about VMT before I sit down. Where Secretary Summers has publicly stated that Maryland's already exceeded federal requirements of the Clean Water Act. Whereas Congress has recognized that the state has an obligation to respect the important role local government has in planning and policy making. The state's actions violate federal regulations, including but not limited to the Clean Water Act, which require the state to cooperate with local governments. 23. Whereas in accordance with the policies, concerns, and issues clearly denoted above, it is self-evident that the state of Maryland, operating under the auspices of the Federal Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act, has yet to properly consider the effect of its policies on the human environment. Next, keep going. Notwithstanding the above, we'll continue to work in good faith. So what I did was, I loaded for bear. I threw all these things up, I read them into the record, and then I said, so no. So you want to fight? Come on. And I do want to say one thing about I heard you talk about the vehicle mileage tax. We can shut that down now. About the vehicle mileage tax. I was the first official in Maryland to uncover it. Actually, she was the first person to uncover it. And I had one of our delegates introduce legislation 2 years ago to prohibit it before it ever, and I did that literally to drag it out from the back of a 300-page Maryland Department of Transportation document. And they denied in the legislature and committee that they had any plans to do it. There was no such thing. It was all fabrication of my imagination. And we held up the documents that actually had it in it. And then Michael Bush came into, Speaker of the House came into, I think it was Bush, it might have been Miller, I think it was Bush, came into the Maryland Association of Counties about 3 months ago and said, we have no plans to implement a vehicle mileage tax. That's totally false. Whoever started that rumor is totally false. But ladies and gentlemen, it's in the 2012 Maryland Department of Transportation policy document. If it's in there, it's a threat to us. So, all right, Vicki?
I have another question.
Sure.
Could this process be used outside of environmental issues? For instance, could we use this process to combat Common Core?
The question was, can we use this in other areas besides environment, Kathy? I know the answer is yes, but there's some qualifications.
Yeah, you have to find where it, in law, particularly in federal laws, handy, where it gives you the authority to do that. So you have to, it takes research. I mean, all of this is not based on stuff that people just kind of thought up. It's based on creative use of the knowledge that you have and looking pretty deeply into a lot of these topics. So, you gotta look into the federal law, but it's possible. And that's something for our new legislators to be putting in our state documents, that the government, the state government has to coordinate with the local. Some of it is in our state documents. I don't know about Common Core.
So I'm kind of ambivalent about that recommendation because it seems innocuous. Oh, the state's going to coordinate with local governments. Well, who can be opposed to that? But we're also educating the state on what the kryptonite is that we can use to hurt them. You see what I'm saying? But going back to Vicki's question, some examples of where it's not really environmental per se. They've used coordination to stop the introduction of non-indigenous species, and like timber wolves into a certain area. It's been used to open up forest roads that the federal government was trying to close. It's been used to stop the construction of the Texas
transnational
highway in Texas that would have damaged some towns there. And it can be used with the Bureau of Land Management when they try to restrict human activities on federal lands. Will it work with Common Core? I'm not aware of any legislation that puts coordination into that policy. In fact, it seems the Common Core doctrine is designed to be a forced top-down Soviet-style program. So I don't know if it doesn't. I can't say for sure it's not in there, but I think we have other ways of fighting Common Core that are going to be equally effective. Any more questions?
But,
No, Kathy.
oh, I was just gonna say, but whether it's in there or not, I think hopefully you've seen examples that it takes a will first. And that's the most important thing, because your governing officials are used to saying, I'm sorry, there's really nothing I feel your pain, but there's nothing I can do about it. And so they don't even look. So, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. When you get somebody who's interested in looking for a way, chances are they'll be able to find a way. Much of what the federal government and the state government does to lower levels of government is they bribe them, they give them money, they give them grants, they give them that money because they can't get them to do what they want them to do otherwise. Generally, if there's a grant being given for your government to do something, that's because they don't have the authority to just darn tell them to do it. So, you know, educate people. You know, they don't always have the authority. You give them the authority when you say, okay, come on in.
Okay, I'm getting the hook here, but one last piece of information you need to have. All of these documents showing where we're coordinating and all the responses coming back, they're all online right now. And you can look at them yourself and read them. Just go to cleanchesapeakecoalition.com. No spaces, cleanchesapeakecoalition.com. cleanchesapeakecoalition.com. All the documents that we've already completed and filed, they're all a matter of public record. You can read them and download them and hand them to your officials and say, here's what we want you to do. Mm-hmm. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
I don't know if you appreciate the amount of research and effort and time that these two patriots have put into this effort, but let's just give them a really good round of applause. So Kathy Fuller and Richard Rothschild, we really thank you for not just being here tonight, but for all you've done in the name of freedom and liberty and individual property rights. And it's just, yeah, I'm telling you, they are true Maryland heroes. And we read about heroes from you know, the War for Independence days and all that kind of stuff, but these are true revolutionary Maryland heroes because they're doing what a lot of people just aren't taking the time to do. And fighting in any way they can, in a very clever, ingenious, and amazing way. So do you not agree? Amen. That's pretty awesome. We have one other speaker tonight, but before we get to him, we do have this thing that we do called Pay the Bills. And actually, the Knights of Columbus are very accommodating to us. Jerry's just one of our greatest friends here in the county, and but our costs are still real. This room costs us $250 a night when we rent it. So for each person, that's only $12 a person. I'm just kidding. I'm not really kidding. But anyway, we are going to pass around the thing. Our money goes straight into these kind of events, into calls and literature and things like that. Nobody in Campaign for Liberty, as we all will attest, gets a salary or any kind of stipend or any kind of thing like that for doing what we do. So we would love to have your participation tonight as Sharon will pass around these things. And we also give away sometimes more than one, but tonight, one really cool Campaign for Liberty t-shirt. And you can have any size you want as long as it's extra large. No, I'm just kidding. There's multiple sizes out there, so if you're not an extra large, now there's only 2 of these in here. So your chances are 50. Now there's only 1 of these in here, so.
Just give it to his girlfriend.
Yeah, they're going to the theater. The winner is 273. The last 3 numbers, 273. 273. Anybody remember that you have a ticket? 273? Do I get a free t-shirt tonight? No, come on, 273. There you go. There you go. You can get any size you want. Oh, yeah, so you can take this one, get any size you want as you go out. That's awesome. Congratulations. Give them a round of applause. Betty, I know you signed up for open mic, which you already did, but just if you can do it in 2 minutes, can you come up real quick? Yeah. 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 Right now. Just to let you know, if she comes to the podium, that there's no meeting in December, but there is a phenomenal. I know it's not a Campaign for Liberty. I misspoke. Christmas party event with Dan Bongino as our speaker. Eric Jackson, raise your hand and go crazy.
Yeah,
Okay, he's there. Put your head on, Santa. He's here. He can use his laptop to get you a ticket and sign you up because it's something you don't want to miss. It's all the food, all the drinks, everything included, and Dan Bongino speaking, and just a bunch of great patriots celebrating the end of the year and the Christmas holidays and stuff. So that's December 13th. So make sure you see Eric. Go ahead.
Hello, fellow patriots. Being a Tea Partier, I always have a lot to say, and with good reason. Some of you hear me call Betty from Owings Mills. I call Tom Moore fairly frequently, sometimes Sean and Frank in the morning. I called Jimmy Mathis last Saturday. The thing is, we've got to stay involved. With this lawless, rogue government in Washington, and we did vote out a few of the lawless rogues in Annapolis, thank God. We're on the way. But as a number of people have said, we've got a long struggle ahead of us. But we sent Obama a message on November 4th. But he just stuck his finger in his eye and said, if I can be it, well, maybe I won't say it. We'll see what Mark Levin said. But the heck with you, America. I'll do what I want because I'm the emperor. We've got to keep resisting. The word is resist. Keep resisting. Call your congressman and remind them they've got to do whatever it takes. Censure, lawsuit, keep the impeachment in the right timing, whatever it takes to get this man out of office. He is totally unfit for the job. Some people are saying that he is mentally ill. He is so delusional with his own narcissism. So keep resisting the lawless rogues. Thank God Eric Holder, I don't know when he's ever going to leave. He said he's resigned. He's staying for a while. But Lois Lerner, all these nasty little things are coming to light. Keep resisting and call your congressmen and women. Boy, I made a bunch of calls last week. Jeff Sessions, I called John Boehner, I called Mitch McConnell, I called Dutch Rippersberger, I called Andy Harris. So call them, email them, anything, but be involved. Don't just sit back. We can take our country back, but keep resisting, okay, and be involved. Thank you.
As Richard kind of brought to light, and Burke once said, all that's necessary for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. And we just really, again, applaud the good men and women, Kathy, who are doing just amazing things, and every one of you who are here. And finally, one of my other favorite speakers ever, and the first gentleman I met when I went to my first Campaign for Liberty kind of startup meeting with about 11 of us in December of 2008 at Silver Spring Mining Company. This guy with the big mustache, and he was some kind of a reenactor kind of guy, but we had mutual friends, and I figured, well, he must be okay. And I found out he's a lot more than okay. He's one of my favorite people on the planet, and that is Dave Bridget.
Yay, Dave!
All right, before I get started, I wanted to announce there's been a enrichment in my life since our last meeting. That occurred on November 20th with the birth for my wife and I's first great-granddaughter. So up in Minnesota, and her name is Leora Mae Murray, and she's 6 pounds, 12 ounces, and she's 20.5 inches long. So God is, he's blessed me with yet another role in life, so I'm really happy about that. What I'm going to do is discuss the elections and start national, work all the way down to Harford County, and then talk about, a bit of what I think about it, okay? And what the lessons are from the election. So let's start nationally, and most people in the room probably have a pretty good idea of how the national races worked out earlier this month. The Republicans have a net gain to date of 8 seats in the United States Senate, moving them presently up to 53. The runoff in Louisiana gives them a good chance of picking up a 9th seat. In the House of Representatives, the Republicans to date have a gain of 10 seats, moving them up to 244 seats. There are still 7 seats that are undecided, including several in Louisiana that require runoffs. Democrats continue their slide down to 184 seats. Presently, the Republicans have a 60-seat advantage in the House. Now, these gains go far beyond what even the most optimistic Republican consultants predicted. What many people are not talking about are how far and wide the Republican wave actually traveled. And this can mostly be seen in the down-ballot races. Let's look first at the state legislatures. Before the November 4th election, nationwide, Republicans held 60 of 99 legislative chambers. So you think there's 50 states, there's 2 in each, but Nebraska only has 1 house. So that drops the number down to the 99. So Republicans controlled 60 and 99 in the country. Before election night, the all-time Republican high was 64 chambers back in 1920. Now Republicans will hold 69 chambers of the 99. That means Republicans control 70% of the state legislative bodies in this country. Of this number, 30 chambers are Republican supermajorities. Republicans have picked up chambers in the Colorado Senate, the Maine Senate, the Minnesota House, the Nevada Senate, the Nevada Assembly. Note here on Nevada, both houses went from Democratic control to Republican control. Thank you, Harry Reid. Also, the New Hampshire House, the New Mexico House, the West Virginia House, and the West Virginia Senate. Note here on West Virginia, both state houses went from Democratic control to Republican control. Democrats also lost in the state a U.S. Senate seat and House of Representatives seats. You think Obama's war on coal wasn't an issue in West Virginia? Additionally, while not pickups, Republicans also ended Democratic supermajorities in the California Assembly, the California Senate, the Delaware Senate, and the Vermont House. And this, of course, greatly changes the course of legislation in these states. The November 2014 election also saw Republicans eclipse the all-time Republican high of 4,001 Republican state legislative seats, and this record was established back in 1928. So that's now been broken. Republicans now control both houses in 30 states, a net gain of 4 states. When you include Nebraska, which has a supermajority of Republicans, that brings the total to 31 houses controlled, states that are controlled by Republicans. Democrats now control both houses in only 11 states, a net loss of 8 states. 8 states have a split between their 2 legislative bodies, which is a gain of 5 states. And I found that really amazing looking at the map, that prior to this election there was only 3 states that had a split between the Senate and the House, in other words. So Republicans picked up a net gain of 1 chamber in 9 separate states. Governor races. Voter anger over a stagnant economic recession and lack of leadership coming from Washington extended far beyond the D.C. Beltway on election night, as Americans delivered stunning blows to Democratic candidates in statewide races across the country. Displeasure with ever higher taxes by the electorate enabled Republicans to pick up Democratic-held governorships in deep blue states such as Massachusetts, Illinois, and of course, most stunningly, Maryland. The wins swelled the ranks of Republican governors to 33, a high watermark in the modern era. This represents a net gain of 4 states. Republicans now hold 66% of the governor's seats nationwide. Democratic governors now sit in just 16 states, a net loss of 5 states. This, of course, represents 32% of the seats nationwide. And now we have an independent governor in 1 state, which is Alaska. So factoring in all these changes, here are the bottom line numbers. Legislatures controlled by Republicans, 31, Democrats, 11, and 8 are split. Chambers, 69 are controlled by Republicans, 30 by Democrats. Governors, 33 Republican, 16 Democrat, and 1 independent. Republicans totally control 24 states in which they hold the governor's mansion and both chambers of the state, which works out to 48%. Democrats, by contrast, control all 3 legs of the governing stool in only 6 states, or 12% of the whole. And 19 states, which include Maryland, or 38%, have divided governance. Now, the election in Maryland. When the Maryland General Assembly starts its session in January, it will be dealing with a new governor from a different party, and about 1/3 of its members will be freshmen. Between a Republican governor and a host of more left-leaning Democrats coming in, the next 4 years certainly means a more partisan landscape in Annapolis. Republicans won big in legislative races this year, big at least for what we're used to in Maryland. A record 50 Republicans will head to the House of Delegates. Republicans also picked up 2 seats in the Senate. But House Speaker Mike Bush says even after losing seats, the Dems are still totally in control with 91 seats he can count on to outvote the 50 Republicans. Quote, Democrats have a supermajority. It's 85 to pass emergency legislation or override a veto, unquote, Bush says. Quote, so there's still a significant amount of Democrats, and then to pass any bill, you need at least 75 votes, unquote. Democrats who lost their seats were mostly moderates from the more rural parts of the state. That leaves the new Democratic caucus centralized in the D.C. suburbs and the Baltimore region, more liberal urban areas. Geography isn't the only shift. New Democratic delegates skew far more left than the lawmakers they replaced. Look for a new batch of progressives to square off, not only against Larry Hogan, but what they perceive to be centrist Democratic leadership in Annapolis. Quote, they're younger. There are people who have been very, very active in issues in their communities, says Charlie Carter, who heads the progressive labor-backed advocacy organization, Maryland Working Families. Quote, I think quite honestly the energy and the enthusiasm and the determination of some of these freshmen coming in is really sweeping up some of the incumbents who always have been really progressive but have always just followed the system's rules, unquote. So what this quote is telling you, the left in Maryland is prepared to double down post-election. An article posted on WYPR, the public radio station, states, and this is again by Ms. Carter, the state elected a governor who ran on conservative economic principles, but Carter says more than 24 Democrats were elected running on progressive economic policies. She says this more partisan state government is an opportunity for incoming Democrats to tilt the party still more to the left. So that's the atmosphere that's going to exist. This makes the mission of the people in this room clear. As new taxing and increased regulation bills emerge, we must make sure our Republican delegates live up to their campaign promises and vote no. And it means we must make a living hell for newly elected delegate Marianne Lasani, who will be predisposed to vote for increased spending, new taxation, and new fees. Now, Harford County. I want to spend a moment discussing the elections as concerns Harford County, Campaign for Liberty, and the activists in this room. Oftentimes we hear from the Republican establishment that, quote, all Harford Campaign for Liberty does is attack Republicans, unquote. Well, Campaign for Liberty is an organization that does not endorse or work for candidates. But I will say this. The activists who gather around this organization and call this group their home played a major role based on their own personal convictions for candidates around this county, and in particular played a pivotal role in the Route 40 corridor. People in this room stepped up to the plate and helped Mike Perrone, Jeff Gaylor, and Curtis Beulah in a major way. Activists in this room collectively knocked on many thousands of doors this election cycle. The next time a party regular criticizes you for holding elected Republican officials' feet to the fire, do not back down. Through your sweat equity, you have earned the right to hold elected Republicans accountable for their actions. We have no reason ever to apologize for being principled conservatives, for believing in the Constitution, and for wanting to restore this republic. So I've covered many aspects of this election, but what does it all mean? I want to read part of the transcript from the Rush Limbaugh show that was delivered on May 5th, the day after the election. I know some of you may not be all that fond of Rush, but what he delivered that day made a lot of sense to me. It spoke to my heart, and I wanted you to hear it also. To me, it provides a clear picture of what standards we have to hold Republicans to on the road ahead. It provides a clear message to cut through all the excuses and bull that is to come about why, quote, now is not the correct time to fight, unquote. So this is what Rush had to say November 5th. What I want to do here is cut to the chase. The result yesterday is exactly what I said it would be. The Republican Party now has one of the most important and unquestionable mandates a political party has ever had at its junction with American history, especially a political party which did not run on the national agenda. The Republican Party purposely stood mute nationally. Now, if you go into the races, the House and Senate races all over the country, you will find that many Republican candidates ran specifically against Obamacare. And that is an important note to make, an important thing for you to remember. Individual Republican candidates won, and won big. They won in a wave landslide running against Obamacare. The National Republican brand or image didn't say a word, which makes the mandate that they have all the more incredible. It is rare that a political party running for office in a midterm election, not standing for anything, winds up with a mandate. And they have one. And it is the biggest and perhaps most important mandate a political party has had in the recent era. And it is very simple what that mandate is. It is to stop Barack Obama. It is to stop the Democrats. There is no other reason why Republicans were elected yesterday. Republicans were not elected to govern. How can you govern with a president that disobeys the Constitution? How can you govern with a president that is demonstrably lawless when he thinks he has to be? The Republican Party was not elected to fix a broken system or to make it all work. The Republican Party was not elected to compromise. The Republican Party was not elected to sit down and work together with the Democrats. The Republican Party was not elected to slow down the speed of the country is headed to the cliff and go over it more slowly. The Republican Party was elected to stop before we get off the cliff. And that's the mandate, to stop Obamacare, to stop amnesty, to stop the open borders policy of Obama and the Democrats, to stop the big government assault on the free enterprise economy. The Republican Party was elected to stop the runoff of a debt greater than all the previous presidents combined have created. The Republican Party was elected to stop efforts by this administration to use the IRS and other agencies of government in violation of manners and law in attacking political opponents. The Republican Party was elected to put an end to this incessant and divisive lie that is the war on women. Yesterday's result cannot in any way mean that voters want Republicans to work with Democrats. And anybody that tells you that, and anybody that thinks that, could not be more dangerously wrong. You do not have election results like we had yesterday, with the intent being that the voters intend the winners to work with the losers. This election was about stopping the losers. In this case, the Democrats. There can be no other correct analysis of what this election was about. They were not elected to, quote, fix a broken system, unquote. They were elected to stop the people who are breaking the system. The results do not mean that voters want Republicans to govern. The election does not also mean that the country became conservative. It can't be said that there was an ideological component to the mandate, because the Republicans did not run on ideology. The Republicans ran everywhere to stop Obama, and that's what the mandate is. Now, whether they want to accept the mandate or not, that's another question. Whether they are even aware of the mandate is an even bigger question. As I listen to the Wizards of Smart, all the analysts of both parties, all movements on TV last night and today, the thing I'm hearing from everybody is what the voters want is for Washington to compromise and people to work together. That's not what they said. That is not what the voters said. They didn't say it in the exit polls. They didn't say it in the election results. This was a skunking of the Democratic Party. This was the people of America standing athwart history and yelling, "Stop!" There's only one entity that can do that, and that's the Republican Party. They were not elected to, quote, get along, unquote. They were not elected to, quote, reach across the aisle. They were not elected to, quote, compromise, unquote. They were not elected to, quote, end gridlock, unquote. They were elected to stop the policies of Barack Obama and the Democratic Party. Too much damage has been done already to too many people. Because of a president of the United States, people are having their jobs converted from full-time to part-time. The American people didn't think that was on the table. They didn't think the president, when he was promoting Obamacare, meant that they were going to get fewer hours to work. They didn't think they meant that they were going to lose their health care. They didn't think it meant that their premiums were going to skyrocket. The American people showed up yesterday and voted in numbers and voices with one message: stop this. There is no legitimate alternative analysis. I don't even know how you come up with the idea or the conclusion that the message in the vote yesterday is, quote, yeah, they want us to cross the aisle and work with the Democrats, unquote. If they wanted you to work with the Democrats, you wouldn't have won. If they wanted to work with the Republicans to work with the Democrats and to help the Democrats accomplish more, they would have elected the Democrats. Yeah, well, they want us to work together. They want us to fix things. They want us to stop gridlock, unquote. No, no, no. They want as much gridlock as it takes to stop what's going on. The country is careening out of control. All of the public opinion shows it. Right track, wrong track? 2/3 of America says wrong track. The number was increasing as we got closer to the election. Rush continued on to say this: but you must understand, the Republican Party, must understand that they have one objective. There was one lesson was being taught last night, one message being sent. Stop Obama, stop this country careening out of control and being transformed into something it was never founded nor intended to be. Stop the Democratic Party, stop Barack Obama. The Democrat Party part of that has been dealt with in the Senate and the House. Make no mistake, if voters wanted Republicans to work with Democrats, they wouldn't have seen to it that so many Democrats got creamed last night. The country is tired of Democrats. The country is worn out with Democrats. The country's depressed because of Democrats. The country is out of work because of Democrats. The country is feeling aimless because of Democrats. The country is not optimistic about its future because of Democrats. There is no way the vote yesterday was a signal to work with them. They have had 6 years of unstoppable destruction, and the American people, and I, by the way, want it stopped. So that's what Rush had to say on his radio show. And now I want to conclude tonight with a brief article written by Robert Weil of Breitbart. It's a short article. This is what he says. And unfortunately, this article may signal the road ahead for the new majority in both the House and the Senate. Quote, Representative Michelle Bachmann, Republican Minnesota, revealed on Saturday that the Republican leadership, led by Speaker of the House John Boehner, has no intent of resisting President Obama's executive amnesty that he ordered last Thursday. Breitbart News Executive Chairman Stephen Bannon asked the congressman, who was a guest on Breitbart News Saturday, Sirius XM Patriot Channel 125, quote, has there been any firm commitment from the leadership of the Republican Party saying that this amnesty is not going to happen? Bachmann replied with a question, quote, do you want the truth? Okay, I'll tell all of Breitbart's listeners what happened this week. I was floored. In the weekly meeting called the Republican conference in the House of Representatives, we all knew that the big issue for the week was going to be the president announcing his amnesty, she explained. Bachmann recounted that all the leadership went to the microphone, including John Boehner. Quote, "They acted as though the amnesty issue wasn't even an issue. They said the president is going to do what he is going to do, and we are not going to get down in the mud with him. We are not going to engage, and what we are going to do is talk about our positive solutions on jobs, the economy, education, and manufacturing," Bachmann said. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I issue this statement to the National Republican Party, the Republican Party of Maryland, and the Republican Party of Harford County. And it's pretty simple. If you want peace with your conservative, liberty-minded, constitutionally grounded, grassroots activists, then you better fight for us. Thank you.
Guys, that concludes the meeting. If you want to just thank Richard and Kathy for being here tonight. I see one hand. Is there any others?
Don't forget to buy your tickets on the way out. Eric is all set up in there. And one thing I wanted to mention on this amnesty issue that Dave brought up, it doesn't look to me like the Republican leadership is really going to fight on it either. Matt Salmon, representative from Arizona, has put together a letter with 17, 18, 19 co-signatures on it and sent to, I believe his name is Hal Rogers, the chair of the Appropriations Committee, upon which sits our very own Andy Harris, who is not one of the signatories on that letter. What that letter asks is that the Appropriations Committee sees to it that not a single penny of the budget goes to enabling Barack Obama's illegal amnesty. I know we don't have an action item, but there's no reason why you can't go home and tell your friends about it, why you can't call Andy Harris's office and encourage him to be a co-signatory on that letter, and, you know, make phone calls to your friends, make phone calls to your representatives, and let them know that you want something done about this.
And can we have that on harperliberty.org, and can we send an email about that?
We'll get an email. We'll get an email out. We might not get it out before Thanksgiving, but right after Thanksgiving, we'll send you all that info.
There's also a Republican convention, the
Yes.
state party convention, and that would be a great place to pressure party members to contact, especially the leadership. to
State
contact.
Party Convention is going to be December 5th and 6th. And you're all as welcome as the rain on December 5th, Friday night. Our sister group, Maryland Liberty Action, will be having a small Liberty Caucus event there at the Merriweather Room at Turf Valley in Ellicott City. And for whomever wants to come, it's a free event. You're welcome to come. It's free food, butler hors d'oeuvres, and a cash bar. And we'll be having speakers there as well. I'll be doing a very short speech followed by our homegrown hero, Mike Perrone, who won his office in Edgewood. And then Mr. Rothschild has agreed to speak as well. And Robin Grammer in Baltimore County, District 6, who won his House seat. So some great speakers there. That's December 5th, Friday night at Turf Valley. So if any of you can make it in lieu of our meeting for December, should be a really nice event.
Awesome, yeah. And congratulations to Curtis Buell on the county council. And there's no meeting in December. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.